Today, 2,400 decommissioned subway cars line the ocean floor from New Jersey all the way down to Georgia. Back in 2008, photographer Stephen Malone documented the dumping of 44 of these decommissioned cars into the Atlantic. When I ran across these photos, I couldn't help but wonder why. Why were all of these old vehicles being dumped? And why specifically subway cars? So I began to dig into the story, and lo and behold, I found that the list of materials being dumped didn't stop at subway cars. If you look below the water surface along the East Coast, you'll find trucks, vessels, and even bridge materials. I started to get even more curious as to why these materials were intentionally left at the bottom of the ocean. So the big question is, why is New York City dumping all of these materials into the harbor? So I was doing research before and I figured out why. And it's because they want to create artificial reefs. So now I have two other questions. First one being, why create artificial reefs in the first place? And the second one is, why are they dumping these specific materials into the harbor to do that? So now we're taking the Long Island Railroad to Crabtree State Park in order to talk to someone from the Department of Environmental Conservation in order to find out why. Before we get to meet the marine biologist, let me catch you up on a brief history behind the DEC's Artificial Reef Program. To start, we have to go all the way back to the mid to late 1920s, when members of the Boatmen's Association of Great South Bay would sink wooden butter tubs that were half filled with concrete. They sank these tubs in several locations throughout the Great South Bay, marking the first documented artificial reefs in the state of New York. Then in the late 1940s and early 1950s, some of the ocean reefs began to develop, like those on the McAllister Grounds and the Schaefer Grounds. Jump forward to 1962, and the Artificial Reef Program was officially launched in New York. Then, in 1993, the DEC wrote the first Artificial Reef Plan in GEIS. These blueprints allowed the state and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to issue permits to develop artificial reefs as long as the materials used meet program goals outlined in the GEIS. Fast forward to 2018, New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo announced his Artificial Reef Initiative.
Today, we are implementing something that is out of the box, which is the creation of artificial reef sites.
This turned out to be the largest expansion of the reefs in state history. Over the past couple of years, the collaborating agencies have built 12 reef sites along the coast of Long Island and continue to add new materials to all 12 sites. On January 8th of this year, Governor Cuomo reaffirmed his plans to expand the stretch of these artificial reefs in his State of the State address. And with that, we are all caught up. Back to the lure!
As you leave the train, please step over the gap between the train and the platform.
So now we're going to get off at the Babylon stop, and then we're going to call an Uber to get to the park. Woo!
Head to your drop-off at Crabtree Boat Basin.
After about an hour and a half of traveling, we finally made it to the Crabtree Boat Basin, which is about a 5-minute boat ride away from one of the artificial reefs off the coast of Fire Island. Look at all those boats! We met up with Jesse Hornstein from the DEC. We got the opportunity to spend some time with him and ask him some of our burning questions, like, why are these artificial reefs created?
So the Artificial Reef Program in itself is there to provide new fishing and diving opportunities to the public and also to enhance marine habitat.
The Reef Program uses what the DEC calls the patch reef method of construction. With this method, clean materials made from rock, steel, and concrete are placed in discrete areas of the reef sites. The specific patch placements are what provide a variety of marine habitats and in turn enhances species diversity. You can think of this process as kind of a cycle. The artificial reefs are specifically built to encourage complex habitats in areas that lack intricate hard bottom structures. and these complex habitats provide food and shelter for a variety of marine organisms. The materials are dumped into the ocean. They sink to the flat sand or silt bottom of New York shores, and over time, the hard structures are covered with organisms like algae, barnacles, anemones, and corals. Sooner or later, different species of fish and crustaceans like black sea bass and lobsters are attracted to the reefs and look for food and shelter. This helps the reefs flourish. Then, as they mature, they give the public more opportunities for saltwater fishing and scuba diving. As we were walking around the dock at the Crabtree Boat Basin, Jesse showed us this sign. It's the map from the DEC that shows each individual location of all 12 artificial reefs, along with each of their coordinates.
So there they are, all 12 reefs. There's 2 on the North Shore in Long Island Sound, 2 here in Great South Bay, and we're right here right now. There's 8 on the South Shore of the island.
One similarity among all 12 reefs comes down to the types of materials used. Many of the reefs are built with what the DEC calls secondary use materials that are being repurposed specifically to benefit these marine habitats. The materials placed on the reefs are chosen based on 4 key components.
Their function, compatibility, durability, and stability.
Each material is selected based on how well they're going to function as a strong habitat that will not harm the environment, that will last for years, and will not move from the location they were originally placed. The DEC has sunk
everything from old fishing vessels, old tugboats, to concrete from, for example, like the Tappan Zee Bridge that was just taken down. Old army tanks were used at one point.
The overall goal of the Artificial Reef Program is essentially twofold: to enhance or expand diverse marine habitats and to provide more opportunities for fishermen and divers. The latter goal can then help improve the local economy, and the reef sites are doing just that.
So people are out there, they're utilizing them. So that means that people are putting money into going out there, so it's helping to boost the local economy. I was surprised by how much marine life was down there. In one of the videos that we have, there's so many fish that, it's hard to count all of them. It really attracts the life and turns into these really productive and biologically diverse areas. So.